The live button has popped on. Here we are on Monday afternoon with our Ovadia Heart Health live stream. I have the great pleasure to be with, I'm going to dare say, colleague and friend, Corey Jenks today. And we've got lots of fun stuff to dive into. As everyone who's a, let's say, avid listener, maybe those who don't, we do have one housekeeping tip. We need to make sure that everyone understands this live stream, like all our live streams, is not intended for personal medical advice. If you are interested in working with Dr. Philip Ovadia or our team at Ovadia Heart Health, please reach out to team@ifixhearts.com, and that's where you can get your personal medical questions answered. Welcome, Corey. How great to see you.
It's a pleasure. Happy Monday, everybody. For those of you who are winding down the workday, we're almost there. So
that's right. And I do want to let everyone who's listening in, if you've got comments or questions for Corey, please put them in the chat. We love to address questions. This is meant to be for you, the listeners, as well as us. So, Corey, let's get right to it. So, there might be many people who already know and are familiar with your work. However, there might be some souls out there that don't know about your pharmacy work, your author. Give us the lowdown, please.
I've seen my website traffic. I'm confident there's more people who don't know who I am than who are. So thank you for that. I'm a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist since 2011. And I have worked in a variety of settings. I've worked at a retail pharmacy. I've worked in hospital pharmacy, inpatient, outpatient. My current practice is in ambulatory or primary care. Pharmacists, many people don't know this, but we can do what's called disease state management. And we like the reverse word around these parts I hear, not managing chronic disease, but that's what we're officially told to do. And think of me like a physician's assistant. I extend under an agreement with a provider, I can see people for chronic things like, we'll say, diabetes, weight, high blood pressure, prescribe medications independently, adjust those just like you would go see your doctor. So that's that. I'll call it my boring day job. I also have a background in improv comedy. So I've been doing comedy since 2013 here in Tucson, Arizona. I always had an interest in it, and I finally had the time to take a class. And from taking a single class of improv comedy, I performed, taught, coached thousands of people. I've run the comedy school here at Tucson, the Tucson Improv Movement. So if you're in town, come see a show. I don't get out there to perform as much as I used to or would like to because I have 3 young kids. So they keep me up late at night. And if I'm out any later at an open mic, I might never sleep. So that's the comedy side. And really since about 2015, 2016, I have been just obsessed with learning about metabolic health. Medications are great in the right time, but I really got tired of just medicating people and we're going to air quote here if you're listening, managing chronic disease. So that is why I got so interested in nutritional and exercise interventions to help people not have chronic issues like diabetes and blood pressure and weight issues. And I can tell you that once I started learning more about the best way to do it, I got really excited. As a parallel track, I learned how much our current standard of care fails, and it made me equally angry. So that's the quick overview of who I am and what I do.
Oh, fabulous. So first and foremost, if anyone wants to reach out, whether it's schedule a talk with Corey or know more about him, you can reach him at his website, CoreyJenks.com. So use that link, copy it, and paste it. So many things to stop. I don't know which iron in the fire to grab first, but because a lot of individuals are interested in, the medication side. So let's kind of start with that a little bit. One of the things that we encounter, for listeners who don't know, here at Ovadia Heart Health, we have 2 sort of wings to what we do. We have our private medical telemedicine practice, and then we have our employee wellness program practice. Both, congenital, let's use that word, comparable, same philosophy, metabolic health. But from both sides, we're hearing a lot of desire and interest in actually having medications de-prescribed, not getting more, but trying to do less. So since that's a part of your business as a pharmacist, can you sort of help enlighten myself as well as our audience of how that process might go? Obviously, very different per medication, but just some better insight so we're a little more knowledgeable on how that might go.
Yeah, well, I would, my joke is it's quite a business model. When I started pharmacy school, it was all about how can we give as many medications as we can to fix the problem. And now I'm in the business of taking medicines away. I promise I did not profit from the give more more medicine side of things. And quite honestly, I don't blame people for wanting to get off medicines. They are for the I don't want to sound too extreme on either side. For the right people in the right situation, medications are certainly appropriate. When you have an ear infection, as I did a few years ago, an antibiotic is a miracle because they suck. If you have a kid with a skin infection like I had a few months ago, it was a really good thing he didn't have to go into the hospital and have a serious issue happen because he had a skin infection. And maybe antibiotics aren't a great example because they're not my expertise, but you get the picture. Like in the right situation, the medication is appropriate. But I think what happens is in a traditional healthcare model we have here in the United States, you have 7 to 10 minutes with your primary care provider. Every person could be dealing with 3 or 4 chronic issues, and the doctor needs to do something. They feel like we got to do something. And so the quickest and simplest path to fixing that blood pressure issue, that blood sugar issue, is to write a prescription for something. And if you are not getting at the root of how this issue is started, we're never going to reverse it. And it is going to get worse, and you will need more medications. And so my expertise is type 2 diabetes. Many patients I see have been told, you're going to be on medicines forever. It's going to get worse. You're going to be on insulin eventually, which one, I hate to hear because it just is so disheartening. But 2, it doesn't have to be true, which I'm getting to the de-prescription part. So what do we think about this? I think you have to want it. So for many of your listeners, it sounds like they want to be off medicines. Because if I could say patients, I have family members where I talk about, you're on diabetes medicine. You don't have to take it if you don't want to take it, if you improve your diet. And they say, I would rather take my glipizide and eat my cookies. And I say, all right, we will do the best to keep you as safe as possible on this path, because every medication can cause problems too, side effects. So that's where I'm starting is what does the patient want? And I think if you can find a provider, a pharmacist, a doctor that was willing to listen to you and actually help you on the path that you want, you're doing better than like 75 to 90% of people who see the traditional healthcare models. So, and then from there, let's go through a list of your conditions. Let's go through a list of your medications. It's inevitable that we come across medicines that I'll ask someone, why are you taking that medicine for your heartburn? And they say, well, 7 years ago, I had some heartburn and they put me on this proton pump inhibitor, and I've been on it ever since. So sometimes it just comes down to looking at, is every medication essential? I guess that's the first step, is what is essential? If I stop, are there any medicines that if we stop today, you could get sick or die? Then we don't want to stop those. If there's ones that are not crucial or we don't know why we're taking them, we got to do a deeper dive and figure out, can we stop them and or taper off of them or figure out the best way to do it? And then for the others that might be a little bit more chronic, we're talking from our metabolic disease problems, the blood pressure, the blood sugar medicines. Well, what interventions have you tried with your lifestyle? What are you willing to try? And it really depends on what you're taking, because my number one thing with medicines is safety. So if I'm going to start one or if I'm going to stop one, number one job is safety. And I think pharmacists are by nature a very cautious group. I've never met a pharmacist that hang glides, for example. So we're very conservative. We're nervous. Well, I think there are some that are less nervous to start them because we're considered the experts and we just like throw some meds at it. But it's really I like to go stepwise and get in the shoes of the patient. Like, you're overwhelmed taking all these medicines. We might be overwhelmed stopping all these medicines as well.
Oh, that's some great stuff for our listeners. And your very first point, the individual has to want it. One of our taglines or premises that we do in our employee wellness program, but also in our private practice, is asking the individual why they want to be healthy, making sure that we're supporting them and helping them tap into that why, whether it's, be around for my grandkids or kids, or I just want to be more mobile, or I'd like to have better heart health. That's the first step in addressing that. And then this is important for individuals wanting to possibly have some medications, go through that step by step, again, with safety as a premise. And I see we've got here, if you're interested in our employee wellness programs, this is the website, the link to find out about those. But you also mentioned, what lifestyle practices are they doing? This is the question probably that in that 5 to 7 interview with your medical provider may not happen. And in the pharmacy business, do you in general have a little bit more time with these individuals, or are you restricted to that really short and sweet time frame?
Well, it depends on which pharmacy business we're talking. So if you are going to your general retail pharmacy, if your pharmacy that you go to has a drive-through, they probably do not have the time to go in depth with your lifestyle related questions. In my line of work, like I was with the VA for a number of years. I'm with a private practice now. We get 20 to 30 minutes with a patient. And I have set the boundary that I will focus on a single issue, which means that we can go more in depth on that single issue to address, where you are, what you've tried, and where you want to go to figure out what those wants are. So, and that's time that I really try to protect, because it's hard to do everything. I want to build a skyscraper, not a suburban neighborhood, if that makes sense. We can't do a million things well. We can try and do one thing really well with each interaction that we have. And so I'm lucky within my practice to get that 20 to 30 minutes, and sometimes 40 will take, if it takes longer, it takes longer. But that's my preference. And I think I have much empathy for your general primary care provider, because they are overworked and underappreciated, and they have many constraints on them. So if you're able to find a specialist that can go in depth with a problem, and I think that's where pharmacy has we can do a lot with medication deprescription, medication deep dives. And if you're trained like me as a metabolic health practitioner, we can go into that metabolic health side as well and really get to the root of what's going on and what we can actually change and do what you want to change. So yeah, that's the luxury that I get.
That's a great strategy. And something for our listeners to think about is, oftentimes we have a big list of what we want to talk about when we have an appointment with a provider, whether it's a coach or the doctor. Sometimes it's great to just narrow it down. What's your top priority? And be able to do, like you're utilizing in your practice, a better, deeper dive on that in that one area. I love that strategy. Since you brought up metabolic health, I know you're, or at least backstage, I got a little insight. You're working on a new talk that has a real link, not only to metabolic health, but to our employer wellness listeners. Can you give us a little insight on that, and where's this coming from?
I would love to give insight, and I will listen. Anyone who will listen to me talk about this, I will. So I've just a little background. I'm a professional speaker as well, and author, and I've done a lot of talks applying the skills of improv to healthcare. So you would not think that being a silly guy on a stage would have anything to do with healthcare, but listening, communication, teamwork, empathy, these are all things you probably hope your doctor has and often doesn't. So trying to help healthcare professionals with that. But the new talk that I'm working on is the basic idea is health is the one leadership role we can't delegate. And so as you listen to this, if you are an employee, you are a leader. Maybe you're a manager. Maybe you're a supervisor. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you have a dog. You lead something in your life. And we cannot delegate our health. We can delegate our scheduling. We can delegate if you have a social media manager, but you can't delegate someone running sprints for you. You can't delegate someone eating food for you because there's too much impact you want to have. And I see it, unfortunately, in my practice. If you are seeing me, it is because something has gone wrong over a long period of time. You have gotten to the point where you have diabetes. You are significantly overweight. You have high blood pressure issues. We have not gotten out in front of this long before you're seeing me to, air quote, manage it. And when I first see you, we might be doing medications to limit the damage. But if your blood sugar is 400, we got to stop that. And then we can put the fire out, and then we can rebuild the house and then with a better foundation. But I mean, a lot of what I talk about, there's nutrition and exercise are certainly part of it. But I think there's other pillars of health and that we ignore. And as a pharmacy likes the medicines, and we do, TDF, think drugs first, is what my professor always said, and we focus on that. But we got to work on sleep. We got to have good relationships. We have to have a way to deal with our stress. We have to play. And I think that's one thing as grown-ups we don't do well. And that's one thing as someone who literally does adult play with improvisation, that literally changed my career. It changed my whole outlook on life. And I think that's a huge pillar that I like to talk about in my talk is the eating side of it. We have wonderful resources like I'm talking to you now to help guide you there. I can help guide you there. But if you're in the gym 12 hours a day, miserably eating cold chicken breasts and kale, which I'm not a big fan of kale. I know it's like our health. I just don't like it. It's bitter. I don't eat it. So
I'm with you on that.
I can tell you a story of why I was traumatized with kale, but if you're doing that for 12 hours a day and you don't see your family, or you're miserable, or you're stressed to the gills, what's the point of good metabolic health? We have to have a life that's happy. And a big piece of what I'm talking to people about are not the nuts and bolts of diet. Like I give them I keep it simple, like a page handout, a diet, page handout, an exercise, but we get into the why, like you talk about. Why do you care? Do you want to be around your grandkids? What's your purpose? Do you have a job that you feel happy about? Do you have a family you're leading? And a lot of the people I talk to assume I'm going to tell them they have to go run marathons and spend hours at the gym, which much like kale, I don't like running a long distance. So I've been traumatized with a half marathon before. Again, I could tell you that story later. So and I think pharmacists are really good at X's and O's, left brain thinking. And we often forget about that human. And sometimes a doctor will be like that. Sometimes it's a nurse, and sometimes it's the flip, and you have the most wonderful warm provider in front of you. And so for me, I'm trying to be all of that to someone in 15 to 20 minutes, or if I'm giving a talk, shifting the way we think about health from, oh gosh, I have to go take a walk, to, if I can go take a walk 5 times a day around my meals, now I don't have to take my metformin. Now I don't have to drive to the pharmacy. Now I'm not having to check my blood sugar. Now in 20 years, I'm going to be in better shape than I would have. We all decline in some ways, but you want to start with a higher ceiling so your floor is higher as you go. So does that kind of get to what you were hoping to get out of that?
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw a few fishing rods out there onto a lot of that, but I think it's really important. Let's just jump for the second here on play. Mm-hmm. I know even in Mark Sisson's blueprint pyramid, I don't know if you've seen that, for exercise, still play is part of that, is to keep reinforcing that sometimes we need to do things unstructured. I lived several decades in Europe, and, especially in the Netherlands, everybody cycles, but cycles for just pleasure and to get to A from B. It's not a sport with a helmet and gear, and you're racing someone. It is just part of the culture within there, as is often in other cultures, spending time eating together. I was talking with a client at one of our employer wellness programs, and they had a sad event in their life recently there. But one thing they decided post this is they're going to do dinner together every night. They have a multi-generational house, and they feel this is one of the best things they can do to honor the person who's no longer with them. But to slow everybody down. All right, that veered a little bit away from play, but I think this
relationships, though, that's one of the pillars. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And helping, obviously from the employer side, they'll say, well, we can't give people time on our dollar to go do nothing. But what would be some sort of tips in this area of helping with better communication? It's a little bit linked, better, time to play and build up some bonds with individuals. How would you sort of help employers understand that?
Well,
importance.
I could make an argument like, yeah, that offsite where we all go play paintball sounds awesome, but you're losing your productivity for a day. We all play as a group or paintball. I don't know why I came up with paintball. It just sounds like I've never done it. It sounds fun. But
Yeah.
through like one example I give in my talk is on my lunch break, I would go play catch. I was a baseball player in high school. One of the technicians I worked with played like baseball. So we'd get our gloves and just go play catch for 10 minutes outside in the sun. Can you do a meeting walking outside? I mean, I'm in Tucson, so the summer is maybe not a great example of that, but can you do a walking meeting? What are, like, I would argue, like, micro moments of play? Because to say we have to clear the schedule for 2 hours to do this, well, what if we could be playful? What if you could have a tone in your emails that's a little bit more fun? What if you could make a contest? Like, I don't know, put a basketball backboard over the trash can, and whoever shoots the most pieces of trash at the end of the day gets some sort of prize. I don't know. Humans are competitive. We'll figure it out. But I would challenge employers to think about some of the most fun jobs they've ever had. And it might have been waiting tables. It might have been working at the mini golf place. What made that fun? And I would argue I've stayed in jobs longer than I would have liked to because I love the people I work with, because we were able to bond. And it was not the big artificial offsite things that did that. It was, we got to have a little trickle of this play every day. If we're not having a little bit of fun, what's the point? And I understand business is dollars and cents and you have to make a profit, but if your employees are happy, they're going to stay and you don't have to pay to replace them. So those are just some small micro ideas off the top of my head. And it depends on your business. Like if you're, I don't know. I mean, if you are a business that is a mini golf course, then your play is pretty much inherent within it. What can you do to incentivize the folks to have fun? Because if you're a business owner, your goal is to run a business, have an impact, but make a profit. Well, what are people working for? What are the motivations for the people working for you? Is it because they want to make you a profit, or is it because they want to feed their family, take a nice vacation, take care of themselves? I can't tell you that. I don't know. It depends on your situation and what your business is. And you better figure out why your people are there. It goes back to that why. I mean, that's one of the big things that we do on an improv stage is if once you figure out your character's why, anything can flow from that want and that why. So figure out what's motivating your employees, figure out what they think is fun too. Because if you work for a company full of people who have never played a sport before and you said we're having pickleball at lunch, they're going to hate that. But if you say, well, maybe we'll do, we can't do beer pong. We wouldn't do beer pong, but like play a little ping pong game inside. Like that's not super athletic. It's not a lot of pressure. You don't have to even break a sweat, but it could be some sort of fun game.
And it's those micro moments. We had not too long ago, Dr. Phil Maffatoni, who's a longtime exercise researcher, but trainer. And he was advocating for micro moments of just movement, that if we can help break the barrier that you need to go be spending hours in the gym or be outside for several hours doing a sport, how you can break that up. And this is a great thing. Maybe we need more micro moments of play that also keep it open to everybody and everybody's capabilities there.
Well, think of a normal day, whether you're at work or not. If you have access to a phone or the internet, like maybe you're checking the news, depressing, sad. You check your work email, you have to work overtime, upset, angry, sad. You're getting this drip of unhappiness and opposite of fun. What if we could flip that a little bit? And I think that's one thing I used to do with one of my medical assistants is he was just scheduling patients for me, but we would turn it into like a back and forth, like we were playing a baseball game. Like, I'd send the name of a patient. He'd say, strike one. You forgot the birthday. Like, oh man. All right. And I'd send him the birthday. He's like, oh man, you knocked it out of the park. Like he did not like his job. I write about it in my first book. He did not like his job. But we were having fun with what we had available to us. And it certainly made what was often a drudgery of kind of a day a little lighter. And that's sometimes in life with as much junk as thrown at us, that's as best as we can do. But it certainly, if you're feeding your brain with a bunch of little joyful moments versus a bunch of negative, angry, unhealthy coping behavior moments, well, those will compound over time, just like money. whether it's compound interest going up or like credit card debt going down, it'll certainly catch up with you in the long run.
Absolutely, and that's a really good image for people to think about. Breaking that up. We don't want to be the compounding on the negative side. Can we add to the plus column on the positive side? I do want to remind anyone, if you've got a question for Corey here today, please put it in the comments section. Also, if you want to know more about his work, check out his website, CoreyJenks.com. If you want to know more about our employee wellness programs, reach out to us at Ovadia Heart Health/wellness. You're an author also. I want to make sure that our listeners are aware. I had the privilege with my husband Robert of going to one of your book opening signings. First, I know you were going to be having something in Oro Valley here in Arizona. You can tell us about that, but also let our listeners know about your books.
Sure. Well, I'll start with my books. So when you say I'm an author, the smart aleck in me wants to say, actually, it's two-time author, but it's all right. I'm not good about telling people I've written books, which is why my wife says I need to sell more before I become a 3-time author. But the first book that I wrote here is called Permission to Care, Building a Healthcare Culture That Thrives in Chaos. You can find it wherever great books are sold, or Amazon. And it's, as I talked a lot about these sort of soft skills of healthcare. And it is really the application of my years of being a pharmacist and being a clinical improviser, applying those skills in my patient interactions. And it's a great book for providing tactical skills for that frontline healthcare professional. You're going to learn fun ways to lighten your day, to listen, communicate, think on your feet more effectively. It does not require taking an improv class, although I think we all should do that. It also provides some great insight on building a culture that, like, healthcare is chaos, life is chaos. So how can we have the mindset to thrive in a world that is chaotic within healthcare? And I will say, you write a book for a certain group, but the skills are applicable across disciplines. My mother is a retired teacher. She read it. The first thing she said was, "Wow, it was actually good." And I said, "Well, thank you for that backhanded compliment." And then she said, "I was a teacher. Teachers could use these skills. Like, they are human skills." And I package it in, I think, a fun, funny, reasonable, digestible way. And then my second book is called "I Guess I'm a Dad Now: Our Humorous Handbook for Newish Dads Who Don't Want to Suck." It is not a pharmacy book or a healthcare book, but I realized that probably my longest chapter is how we feed our kids. So if we're talking metabolic health, like, there's a very specific way we went about feeding our kids to sort of set them up for success long term. Check with us in 20 years to see how it went. But I would argue that they are robust, they're healthy. They can have a treat and not go crazy with it. They recognize when they eat junk food that it's junk food and they don't feel as good. But this book is really, like, if you know a dad in your life that could use some help, which is what I would call every dad on the planet could use some help, especially new dads, I think it's a great read. It's quick, it's easy. It's designed to be a flip to any page and get some insight out of it. So, and with that book, November 7th here in, we'll say Tucson. It's just north of Tucson, Oro Valley, Stacks Book Club. I'll be doing a book signing, little author spotlight. So 6:30 p.m. on November 7th. Come say hi. I will sign the book. I will personalize it. I will write anything you want in that book if you will buy one from me. Yeah. So I will happily do that.
Well, as an avid book reader, I'm always looking for those type of events. That's fantastic. And the Permission to Care, I think, has probably some great insights also from the employee wellness side. And that might give some good strategies, not only about the play factor, but how you can communicate and maybe potentially lead with a healthier, or especially metabolic health focused idea.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the themes that started me in improvisation led me down the road of curiosity to exploring why what I was doing wasn't working for my patients. I think improvisation is a world of curiosity. You have to explore whatever that funny thing is on the stage to make it work in a scene, and that becomes sort of a worldview. It became my worldview. And I think healthcare is full of really rigid, unoriginal thinking. And if you think of something original or different, you're basically shouted down and told you're dumb and don't do that. I had an example. I was trying to do a talk on a dietary approach to blood sugar with a colleague of mine at a former facility, and we were told that we are pharmacists. If it is not a medication, we cannot talk about it. And so, and also we were told that giving people the thought that they could reverse their type 2 diabetes was giving them false hope. And I said, I don't agree with you. And that was the politest way I could have put it. So I think a lot of the people that can use the lessons won't read it, but I think from an employee health standpoint, it says healthcare culture, but you could read this book and improve your general well-being culture, and enjoy reading it as you do it. It's a light, easy read with some pretty simple takeaways.
And this is a really important point: is ownership. Your situation you described, where they weren't interested in your approach to helping people try to reverse their situation. We see that both in not only the medical side of our business, but the employer side. Is many people have accepted that, well, I use this a lot because I'm way older than you are, that they're going to get old, they're going to get frail, they're going to get sick, and they're going to need XYZ medication. And something I did right before we got on, I asked Grok, what is the average US adult? How many medication does the average adult take? It said 4. So 4, okay. I bet there's people on 10, 15. There's certainly some.
I've seen 40. Like
You've seen 40.
It's. Wow. I mean, it's a very sad state when I know it's. This sounds very like uncaring. It's just when you see someone come in with a suitcase of medicines for their medication review, like this is going to be a long visit because we have a suitcase of medicines or a big handbag. And it's not just medicines, it's supplements. And I'm not going to get into the debate of are supplements better, worse. The point is when you're ingesting like all of these substances, there's bound to be an interaction. There's bound to be it's like mathematically impossible. There's not a side effect or a drug interaction that you're not experiencing. And oftentimes you're just blindly throwing you're throwing pills at things, and and you go to one specialist who does one thing, one specialist who does another, your primary care does a third thing. No one's talking to each other, and you come in just as a train wreck. And it's not, I think the challenge of people who would like to accept that they're just going to age and take medicines is, what are they supposed to think? It's learned helplessness. You could look up the research on learned helplessness. I think it was like dogs where they were randomly shocked, or rats or something, and they couldn't get out of their little maze or whatever. And then they let them get out of their maze, but they just didn't even move because they just learned to not even care. We have a society that is basically you're told you need this stuff. Like it's advertised to us on TV. Are you unhappy, overweight, underweight, depressed, etc.? Here's a medicine for that. Like you're broken. Like we're not broken. Humans are not born to be broken. We're born to thrive and be vibrant and great, and fulfill our greatest potential. And if a medicine is there to, like, okay, I take a medicine so I don't lose my hair as much. There, I've admitted it. Like, Mr. Deeper, like, it's okay. I've gone through the risks and benefits of that, and the benefits are I like having my hair. So I've shared that to the public here. But to be on 40 medicines, why? Like, we're the richest country in the world. So overcoming that belief that it's inevitable, I think sometimes you've got to be shown that is either it's not inevitable, show examples of people who didn't, and then show examples of people who turned that ship around. And I have had patients from, sadly, like young as like 20 with type 2 diabetes up to 85, 90, who can totally drastically change the trajectory of their life. It's never too late to start strength training. It's never too late to make some dietary interventions. It's never too late to take ownership of that health, no matter what's happened to you.
And wholeheartedly agree. And I see we have one of our fabulous team members listening in, Renee Trass, with a "so true" exclamation point on that. So thank you, Renee, and thank you, Corey. And yes, I have got an 88-year young client, and several, actually. We have quite a group of octogenarians in our private practice who are thriving. And this is super exciting to see on all counts. And I know we have a mutual friend, Hal Kramer, who runs several assisted living homes here in Arizona. And he's mentioned this number 35. I remember one time in a speaking engagement with Hal of 35 medications that someone came in. That list is, I think, it's not, we're not condemning that. That's just what happened to this individual. That's where they are. But to open up that conversation and encourage people to question what it is, do they need these? That gets us back to your little sort of, I think it was 3 steps really that you talked about in the beginning, Corey, of when you're talking about decubscribing, and correct me if I got the 3 steps wrong, but you said the patient has to have to want it, right? They want to, they have to really want to deprescribe, have fewer medications. You have to figure out the safety and what's essential as number 2, or might even be number 1. I don't know. And then that third piece, I believe, was, kind of what lifestyle could we help you in that situation? So I hope those who are listening took notes this time. I'm glad I did this time.
Yeah, you nailed it. That sounds good. Sounds good to me. That sounds about like what the steps I would take is if someone's, you're here in my office to deprescribe and be on less meds. I like my medicines. I don't want to stop. Okay, then we don't need to we can skip steps 2 and 3.
Right, exactly. So what are a couple things? You're so versatile, right? You've got it's improv comedy side. You're a pharmacist. You're a dad with 3 kids. Man, all I want to say is, how do you juggle all of that? But what are some areas here from whether it's metabolic health or helping employers that maybe you don't think we're talking about enough, Corey?
Well, first off, I juggled it because I have an amazing wife who we are a great team, and so we plan. And I would say I juggle it well because I take care of myself. I practice what I preach. So lead by example. We could talk. We could talk nuts and bolts of diet, but I won't bore us with that. I do a lot of exercise. I just had my 20th high school reunion, and I feel very good about how I have aged in 20 years. So, but what are we not talking about enough? You have stumped me in the moment here. But I think that it is the hidden cost of medications. So we have the actual physical cost. How much does a GLP-1 cost? It's $1,000. Well, your employer covers part of that, and maybe your copay is $50 a month. Well, we're still paying for that with our healthcare premiums. And that's just an example of a really expensive medicine. It could be a cheap blood pressure medicine. We could say, well, I'll name drop amlodipine, super cheap blood pressure medicine. So we have a cheap dollar cost, or it could be an expensive dollar cost. But what's the mental cost of remembering to take a medicine every day? What's the toll on the medical system every month or 3 months when that doctor has to send a refill in, or the pharmacy has to fill it, or that patient has to go to the pharmacy? The hidden cost of the side effects that it could cause. Do you have to go to the ER because you're having an adverse reaction? I used to moonlight in an ER, and we'd have actually a decent amount of people who are on the GLP-1s, which can be a great tool, but a lot of nausea, vomiting, impacted stool, fun for your Friday afternoon thinking about that, but constipation is a big issue. So then they're getting another appointment with their doctor to talk about it. Like, how much is the cost of the problems medications cause? How much is the mental toll on a patient remembering to take it? I write speeches and try to make up jokes. If I'm thinking about remembering my 40 medicines, how much time do I have to focus on my jokes, or my grandkids, or my kids, or my job? What's the lost productivity in just the mental burden of remembering to take those medicines? So whenever I'm starting a medicine, I'm thinking and talking with a patient, okay, we're going to start this, but my goal is to someday be off this medicine if it's for one of those reversible chronic diseases. We're going to use it as a tool, but I'm going to give you the tools to stop it someday. But that's really not usually part of the conversation. So we end up with someone on 35 medicines that is both a financial drain, a social drain, an emotional drain. And I can tell you that people don't like taking medicines. Pharmacists don't like taking them. My wife does, nurse practitioner. She don't like taking medicines. So you're doing something that you don't enjoy every day. You're reminded every time you take that blood pressure pill, my blood pressure's high. Oh, my blood sugar's high. Oh, I have whatever this thing going on. And so for the right patient, right indication, right dose, great. But let's not just jump to prescribing as soon as we can, because there are downstream effects that we just don't often think. And if you're a doctor, you write it, they're gone. Maybe you don't see the issue pop up.
Oh, wow. That's a gold mine right there. The hidden costs, in employer lingo, opportunity costs, right? That
Yeah.
we talk about. And I think it's very underappreciated, the emotional drain. We hear stories of individuals, trying to have the conversation with their medical provider to reduce their medications, and they're not even interested in having that conversation. So we advocate strongly, you have to be your own health advocate, right? You have to, as you mentioned from the get-go, you have to want it, but you have to keep advocating for it. And maybe this is a topic that employers could pursue. We know the financial costs, but what about those hidden costs? The time, the emotional drain on theirs. And I see we have a comment from Leonard. I went from 13 meds to 2 meds after going carnivore in February. I think you mean 2025, not yet 29,
No,
25.
Leonard improved his health so much he time traveled. That's how big of an impact. Leonard, that's amazing. And that's, I mean, like, the pharmacy job I do, I don't get paid more if you're on more medicines. So I'm certainly I have no financial, nothing to gain by you being on 13 versus 2. And like, think of that. Like, Leonard, I'm sure you were taking 13, now you're taking 2. That's 11 less, assuming they were just once a day medicines. That's 11 less things you're having to do every day. 11 less prescriptions you have to call the pharmacy, type in that like 7-digit number, and then they're not a refills, and then they got to call the doctor's office, but the doctor's office is busy, so it doesn't get filled in time. And then you go back to the pharmacy and ask if they've called, and the pharmacy's fax back and forth, and then the insurance company got involved. See, this is what happens. Pardon me. Like it's not a fun game, but it's a little game that I'll call like the polypharmacy adverse drug reaction game, where you just name a medicine and I think of a side effect, and then we name a medicine that treats that side effect, and then that side effect from that treated medicine, and you just go around in a circle of, well, you take this and you take this to take care of that, and you take this to take care of that, and you end up going back to the original. The best one is when you can go back to the original one, treats the side effect from the one that caused all the other medicines, causing side effects. So, and I'm not advocating for side effects. It's just a reality of how it happens. Is you start with one, you get a side effect from that, but they say you got to take the first one. So here's a medicine to treat the side effect of the second one, and these hidden costs just continue to add up.
All right. And that's how that individual that you've seen got to 40 in that situation on there. But, as we start sort of heading towards the time that we have here, we've talked a little bit about deep prescribing and what individuals can do, incorporating play, maybe some micro moments. And I love this golden gem of the hidden costs of medications. Um, you know, I want to just dive in. You mentioned you're juggling because you have a good team partner in your wife. In the workplace, getting those team members, we've had individuals say, well, it's really hard because everybody at work brings in the donuts and they do this, and it's not very helpful to my efforts. I feel alone in that. Any tips for getting a little bit better teamwork and empathy from your experience?
Yeah, I think you got to start from the ground up. Finding members of your tribe, and this is something that I tell my patients who they tell me the same thing. Like every day, it's someone bringing donuts. Every day, there's a lunch being brought in, and I think starting as your own advocate to just have your own mini fridge stocked with something is great. Leading by example. I think if an organization is not going to change its policy, and then I can imagine a non, like instead of having a birthday cake for everyone's birthday, do it like once a month or like twice a month instead of every, like this little, it's like those micro moments of like anger versus micro moments of joy. You're just getting like dinged and every day there's a little thing. Like maybe it's like baked goods. If you got to look at where you are, I guess is as well as like, if you're having baked goods or whatever it is coming in every day. Well, if we get it to once a week, that's an improvement. Now my willpower is only tested once a week. Big improvement. But I would say is be the leader. be the person who is going to choose to go for a walk on their lunch break and see who wants to join you. Because when you start transforming and feeling better, people notice. Sometimes they're jealous, and maybe like be careful of jealous people. But the ones that are like, "Hey, man, how'd you do that? You look like you've lost weight. You look more energetic. You look happier." Well, I'm doing this thing where I don't eat a lot of processed sugar, and I'm going for a 10-minute walk on my lunch. Let's talk about it at lunch today. Let's go for a walk. I think that's what we need is leadership from the ground up. Like I said at the beginning with my new talk, we're all leaders of something. And when you take ownership of your health and you start improving yourself, you are going to be, people will look to you. I think that while we have a workplace that's often, and healthcare is like the worst at it. Oh my gosh. Every day was like the nurse's station was just filled with treats. That's the default. But if you're different, I guarantee there's someone else out there who wants to change, but they're afraid to, they're afraid to hurt feelings. Like I tell patients, they'll say, my grandkids made me cookies. And we'll tell your grandkids that grandpa's got diabetes and it's not good for him. And he loves you very much. And he doesn't love you any less if he doesn't eat your cookies. But I got to be around for you. And it's not helping me. Like we're so afraid to hurt feelings. And we don't have to be mean about it, but it's your body. You get one shot at this. And I can't tell you, like the other night at my reunion, like my wife and I were one of the very few people not drinking alcohol because we choose not to drink alcohol. And it's just like, oh, you're not true. What's the matter? Like, it's almost like, what's wrong with you? Because the default is to be sick. Remember, 93% of Americans have at least one metabolic health condition. The default is sickness. You don't want to be the default. Okay. Be the weirdo and take pride in being the weirdo. And eventually you'll get a pack of weirdos with you. And then it becomes easier to be weird. And then you have a tribe. And then you get it, like our neighborhood is, we're all rowing in the same direction. So you get together and it's like, you don't even have to ask about not bringing this or putting that. We're all in it together. And then it becomes easier and then it's fun. And then you're part of the movement. And that's the fun part is when you start doing that and it inspires others to change.
Oh, wow. I'd say, I want to be part of the weirdo club and be in your neighborhood. Is be the weirdo. That's a great.
That might not be a huge selling point for employers. Is like you got to be the weirdos. Like we'll say it. We'll throw it in a little different verbiage there, maybe.
Yeah, we might have to massage the title, but I think it's all reflective of what you said. And I just checking my notes that I took good. You can't delegate your health.
Right.
If our employer is listening or someone in human resources, or if you're just an employee trying to help inspire better metabolic health in the workplace, be that weirdo, be that person and find some other people to join with you. If you do want to know more about our employee wellness programs, you can reach out here. The link is here, ovadiahearthealth.com/wellness. If you want to reach out to book Corey for a talk or know more about what he's doing, check out his website, CoreyJenks.com. He's going to be at Stacks Book Club in November. What was the date again on that, Corey?
November 7th.
November 7th. Yeah. That's for those of us here in Arizona. Any last bits that you'd like to leave us with? That was pretty inspiring there. I need a new tagline and be the weirdo.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time. I think just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you're listening, it's Corey, Cory, JENKS.com, or if you find me on LinkedIn, Corey, no E. My parents were teachers. They were noble teachers, but they did not have the budget to buy the vowel, no E in my name. So sometimes people like that joke. I would say too, like, I think we hit a lot of great parts. And if employers are looking to figure out like what's going on with the medications with my employees, you want more information. I look to the experts. Like pharmacists are the experts, and I can tell you there are lots of pharmacists that are just itching at the opportunity to share our knowledge. I still think I could be a passionate pharmacist and want people off their medicines, because utilizing the power of understanding how they work and the ups and the downs and the pros and the cons, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to give you the most information about those medications. So find a trusted pharmacist. We're friendly. we're dying to talk about something other than someone coming through a drive-through and asking for a soda instead of their medicines. I promise you, we're just like a dam ready to burst to share our knowledge. So, but otherwise, I think we hit a lot of great points. And then I think the idea of playing and keeping your day full of some joy or some enjoyment, it's not always easy, but it's well worth it. And it's certainly part of health. Metabolic health, exercise, all of it's important, diet. But if we're not enjoying life, what's the point? So enjoy life, but be weird, and don't be afraid to be weird. And if you ever need a friend to help you be a weirdo, send me a message, and I'll be like, you got this. You're not alone.
Excellent. And we're really thankful to have met Corey here in our small group here in Arizona. If you are in our state, we have a little small group, Low Carb Arizona, where we're trying to keep some regularity to our connections. But again, put up here Corey Jenks' website to reach out to him. Again, our website for employee wellness, Ovadia Heart Health. And we also have many white papers that you can download for free. Our latest is also a case study on one of our manufacturing firms in Pennsylvania. You can download all of them for free. That one is particularly case study. Thank you so much, Corey. This was a delight. Keep being weird, keep doing all the fantastic things that you're doing, and hope to see you in person real soon one of these days.
You got it. Thanks for having me on. This was incredibly fun. So, and if you ever need or want me back, if your listeners are like, that guy was good, we'll listen to him ramble again. You say the word.
Let's do
happy
it.
to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be here next Monday.